way back time machine in the 1990s. I had a bakery, and I was cleaning out my drawer one day and I found this photo. So these are the cakes that I made way back then. I had a zesty orange cream cake, chocolate almond raspberry torte, devil's mocha cake, black forest cake, lemon chiffon cake, toasted almond rum cake, and a cheesecake that was based on tofu. These are all vegan cakes at a time when fancy vegan pastries weren't available. And I sold them all over, not only the Bay Area, but all over the country at natural food stores like Whole Foods. So I don't bake as much anymore, but I showed you last week how to make my easy chocolate cake mix and how you can have that cake mix ready to turn into brownies or cake layers or whatever you want, whenever you want. Today I want to show you how to make a light and fluffy buttercream. No, not that stuff made out of powdered sugar. I'm talking something European, Swiss buttercream that's typically founded on egg whites, but we're going to substitute aquafaba for that. And you will get results that are just so light and fluffy and rich without being overly sweet. I sandwiched the cake layers I made with the Swiss buttercream, and I covered this cake in chocolate ganache, and I'm going to show you today how to make a beautiful cake like this. Okay, you know me, I'm the butter queen, so I usually have butter in the freezer somewhere, and I need 12 ounces. And I thought, oh my God, I may not quite have 12 ounces. But it turned out I had exactly 12 ounces of butter. So I made butter in the past. This is what I've got left. And it's actually like 12.3. I think that's close enough. Before you start the buttercream, you must bring your butter to room temperature. Now, you don't want the soft spreadable butter that I have posted. That's got too much liquid oil in it. So you want the culinary butter, or you want the butter that I made on the YouTube channel a long time ago. You can go watch that one as well, or make the culinary one that's got the higher proportion of coconut oil. That recipe is also in the Homemade Vegan Pantry. It's also in the Vegan Creamery. So go for one of those recipes, not the soft spreadable one, because you want it to whip up and you need that saturated fat. So this has been out all day and it's beginning to get soft. The butter must be at room temperature. This recipe is all about temperature in order for it to come together. It's got a very narrow temperature band. Can't be too cold, it can't be too hot. Now, there are two different colors here because this one was made without the addition of annatto, which is from a seed. This one has annatto in it, which made it nice and yellow. So we are gonna make the aquafaba. This is a cooked aquafaba, which will help to hold the consistency of that whipped air. It's going to be really glossy. It's super interesting. And you know, if I've got aquafaba that I'm draining from a can of chickpeas, I stick it in the freezer. So this one's been in there for a while. I have 1 cup of aquafaba. That's perfect. Now I'm going to add 3/4 cup of organic sugar, and I'm going to bring this to a boil, and it has to cook for 5 to 8 minutes. And I have to whisk almost the entire time in order to prevent the pot from boiling over. Okay, it's beginning to simmer. So just to let you know, this recipe is made exactly the way traditional Swiss buttercream is made, using a hot meringue. Okay, so it's coming over, it's boiling over. I got to turn the heat down. I have to keep whisking in order to keep it down, otherwise it will boil over. Why are we cooking the aquafaba with the sugar, you may ask? What we're doing is we're cooking the sugar so that it can reach what's called a hard candy stage, where it turns into like rock candy. And what that does, combined with the aquafaba when we whip it, is that it will keep the aquafaba from deflating. It will help hold its shape while providing this really, really glossy background for the butter that we're going to be incorporating into it. If you were to just add butter to just say cold aquafaba and cold sugar, it would just completely deflate. It would not turn into buttercream. So you do have to go through this process of cooking the sugar in order to create this sort of hard candy caramelization phase. Okay, my timer went off. It's been 5 minutes now. I'm going to let it go for another couple of minutes. I have this little timer here because my daughter Cammie's boyfriend Tesh bought it for me because I'm always leaving things on the stove and burning it. So he got me a timer. So You want it to simmer, not boil over. If you have the heat down too low, it won't reach the caramelization phase, so you kind of have to play around with it. If you're not sure, is it ready? Is it ready? Go for 8 minutes instead of 5, just to be on the safe side. You can't go wrong with that. You do want really stiff peaks. That's why the timer was set for 5 minutes. I'm letting it go for another couple of minutes, just to be on the safe side. If you want to drop this in cold water, it should form a little ball. And that's kind of how you can tell. All right, I think I'm going to take this off the stove and we're going to start whipping it. I can sort of hear it too, that it's ready. So I need between 1 1/4 and 1 1/3 cups. If I have more, I need to continue cooking it. Is what my recipe said. Now this is a recipe that I came up with. Ooh, I cooked it down too far. I have just a cup, so let's hope that works. I came up with this recipe a couple of years ago, and it's not like I'm making buttercream every week. All right, now we're going to start whipping. So I'm going to stop it for a second. I'm going to check this to see whether or not stiff peaks have formed. I know it's taking a really long time to whip. I would say that is still a little softer than I want because the peaks are flopping over. So I'm just going to let it go for a few more minutes. I know this takes a long time. Definitely not something you want to do by hand. I think that's as stiff as this is going to get. I think that's going to work. So we're going to start adding the butter, about a tablespoon at a time. The butter is at room temperature. I've had it out all day. So we're going to add no more than a tablespoon at a time. And we're not going to add any more until the first tablespoon has been incorporated. It will deflate some, but that's okay. It'll all come together. The temperature has to be somewhere between 68 and 72 degrees. In other words, room temperature. This egg mixture is room temperature now. Now, if your butter is too cold, this could clump up. You could get sort of a curdled effect, which you might think is ruined. And if that is the case, warm up the bottom of the pan over a stove for a few seconds and then re-whip. And it will come back together. There's always a fix. Things are rarely destroyed. I'm going to scrape the sides. Now it's beginning to come together like buttercream. Look at that. It is so light and fluffy. Just a little bit more butter. I'm going to add a little bit of homemade vanilla. If you want to add a liqueur like Grand Marnier or rum instead of vanilla, feel free to do that. But our Swiss buttercream is now ready. Okay, I didn't really have a plan as to what I was going to do with this cake when I decided to do a sheet cake. So we're going to cut this into, I think, into thirds. Always use parchment. It just makes it so much easier. So I will do a 3-layer cake. And I have a half-sheet cake thing here. I'm going to cut it. I used to have a bakery, a vegan bakery, before people knew what a vegan bakery was. And I had all the tools, but I don't now. God, the thing I hated about that bakery was you always smell like baked goods. Seriously, you work in a bakery and you just smell like sweets. It just permeates your skin, your clothes, everything. And I couldn't wait to get home and change. Okay, there we go. Not very pretty, but it'll do. All right, so I'm gonna go like this, and I'm gonna try very carefully to flip it over. Cut through the paper. Yes, there we go. This is like a chocolate sponge cake. It really holds together nicely. What can you do with this? I'm gonna smother it in this buttercream, but you could make a little syrup with Kahlua or Grand Marnier or creme de menthe or something like that to add a little bit more flavor. You know, spike it if you like. The French would do that. But you don't have to do that. You can just leave it just like this. You could also add a layer of jam to make it more interesting. So I might do that on one layer. So I'm going to now spread that. Do you see how light and fluffy it is? It looks like whipped cream, but it's buttercream. And once you have this, you cannot go back to what the Americans call buttercream. You could put dark cherries in here, raspberries. Okay, so I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it right on top. As you can see, it holds together very well. I wasn't exactly in terms of the 1/3, 1/3, but you know what? It's close enough. And this piece is in the middle and you'll never know. Oh, you know, I'm gonna get some jam. So let's put some jam on it. Okay, I found some wild blackberry, plum, and peach that I got from a local country fair. Ooh, look at those chunks of fruit. So one of the ladies in the community made this, and I'm sure it's delicious. Now we'll put some more on top, and I want to save a little for the top, so I won't use it all. The last layer is going to go on there now. Oh, that looks beautiful. All right, and we'll top it off with the rest of the cream, and then I'm going to pour ganache over it. But beforehand, we will have to put this in the freezer for the cream to set so that the ganache doesn't melt everything. This is going to be a stellar cake. That's so good. All right, so I'm going to put this in the freezer to chill for maybe 30 minutes or an hour until it's solid, cold, slightly frozen. And then we're going to pour ganache over it and let that set, and the cake will be done. All right, so here's the cake. I put it in the freezer overnight because before I make the ganache and pour it over, this cake has to be chilled. The Swiss buttercream has to be cold enough that it doesn't completely disintegrate when we pour the warm ganache over it. So I kind of put it on top of something, so the cake got a little crooked here. So there's a little space there, but you know, as it thaws, it should sort of level itself out. Now you don't have to put it in the freezer, it can be in the refrigerator, but I do suggest freezing it for at least a few minutes before you pour the ganache over it. Okay, so ganache is super simple to make. It is literally dark chocolate melted in some sort of milk. So you can go ahead and use any kind of plant milk. I am using soy milk here, and I have 1 cup of soy milk, which I'm going to heat up. Okay, that's hot. I'm turning it off. So just right before boiling, and I'm gonna pour it over my dark chocolate. I'm putting a plate on top of it. We'll wait a minute, and then we're gonna stir it to melt the chocolate. I'm gonna start stirring. Chocolate is melting. The one thing you don't wanna do is melt the chocolate and then add the milk. You always wanna pour the milk over the chocolate or add the chocolate to the hot milk. Okay, I added a splash more hot milk just so it's a nice, beautiful, pourable consistency. And now I'm gonna pour it over this cake. I'm putting a piece of parchment under my cake so I don't make a huge mess. And I'm gonna pour this over my cake, and it's gonna start running down the sides. And because my cake is cold, it's gonna start setting very quickly. Just make sure that you let the ganache cool for a few minutes before you pour it on the cake so that it isn't so hot and it doesn't completely melt your frosting. Okay, the cake is still sort of up in the air on this side, but it should come down. At least I'm not selling this cake. All right, let's take a look. See how this cake looks on the inside. Okay, well there we go. I've got my chocolate cake made with my chocolate cake mix. I have my Swiss buttercream and ganache. I also have a little layer of some kind of jam. I can't remember what kind I used. It's so light and creamy, and the flavors are complex and they complement each other. It's not just yet another overly sweet chocolate cake with some, you know, confectioner sugar buttercream. This is really, really good. I'm gonna serve it tomorrow night to some friends that are coming over. Well, thank you for watching The Vegan Good Life with Miyoko, and I hope you tune in for another episode. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to share more recipes with you.